Thanks for joining me. I'm Angela Clark, the artist behind Clark Fine Art. Today, I'm going to be painting this waterfall in the woods in acrylic on an 8x6 wrapped canvas. I'm going to use these 5 primary colors because let's face it, everybody's stuck at home. This might be all you have, and I'm going to show you how you can make any color you want to just from a basic set of paints. So here I'm mixing in some green and black, making almost the equivalent of like a sap green if you have plenty of colors available to you at home. If not, just a little green and some black, or even yellow, blue, and black. You can make this same color. So here I'm going to I need a really dark brown. I've just blocked in where the woods are going to go, and now I have to block in where my rocks are going to be for the river. So I've almost made the equivalent of what would be a raw umber, a very, very dark brown. And I'm just laying in my rocks. This is going to be the underpainting for where my rocks will become. And I'm throwing in what will be shadows in my riverbed. And now I'm mixing up just a lighter color because my water is going to be very clear, so it's going to look like a sandy brown because you'd be seeing right through to the bottom of the river. So once I have that set, I'm just going to lay this over, and if it smears that dark shadow I put, all the better. Not forgetting to paint my edges because this is a wrapped canvas. And then I am just going to hit that with the hairdryer, make sure everything is nice and dry before I flip it back over and continue. So now, taking that same color that I just made for my water, I'm going to start laying in some of the shape of my rocks. And I do that just by hitting some horizontal strokes. Things don't have to be even. If it glides and stutters, all the better, because these are rocks and they're just going to have the way that the light catches them. There's going to be imperfections. So just go with it. And I'm taking some black and adding some more definition of what will be shadow to try to separate these and make them look like individual rocks. And I'm going for like that flat stacked rock on top of rock that the water is just going to cascade over and trickle down. So here, just continuing to go in layers, making various shades from the color I had mixed for my water. And I just continue to add these in. And I was going to try to do this painting as a paint with me. I want to do a paint with me series for you. And I really wanted to try to do this one. And you'll see it just kind of takes on a life of its own. And it really grows a little more beyond what I think we could accomplish in an hour or two. So I'm just going to share this video with you. And we will try again with another painting. But I will get one out to you soon. So here I'm just adding more. Now I'm trying to see in my mind where I want different rocks and different shapes to be. I'm going to add a larger rock here on the left. And what I'm doing is making different areas. So as the water comes down, it can hit one rock, cascade off to the next, and we can have a series of waterfalls stepping down this large pile of rocks to add some depth and height to my painting. So you're creating more separation in these rock layers. And as I do this, I just kind of go along and whatever speaks to me. If all of a sudden it looks like, hey, I should add another rock here, then I'm going to do that. And just continuing, there you go. And then just continuing with the separation of these different layers. And just continuing to mix up various colors. I threw a little red in there to give it some variation because all of our rocks are not going to be exactly the same color. And then coming back as one dries, just adding some shadows, just giving it more of that look of a rock. Here, just defining that edge. I'm going to want the water to cascade down onto this like a large platform and then flow forward and then fall over again. So I'm trying to make this a new layer. And then here below, I'm going to want one more good strong layer where the water can hit and then fall over again. Just creating a multi-staggered waterfall effect down these rocks. this is something that can be really difficult for some people, is knowing what that end result, what that picture in your mind is that you want, and how do you create it? Because we have to start from the furthest distant point and then keep building that forward and forward. So getting those first layers in those shapes for the background can be hard sometimes to get yourself to where you want to be in that foreground in the finished product. Here I thought I'd put a large boulder that maybe the water could hit and then cascade down around this rock also and into our riverbed. And I'm just adding different shadows and highlights because I'm going to want the water to hit it and then change direction and flow certain ways. So the more shadow and texture I can add, the better. And then, of course, I want this rock reflecting because the water is very still and clear as it comes to the foreground. Adding more highlights through. Here, defining my edge. This is where the edge of my water is going to be up against my rocks, and it's going to be foamy here because the waterfall's hitting in this spot. So that's coming through right with some white. And now I'm taking a very fine detail brush, and I'm going to throw in some trees. And now while these are almost all going to disappear once I add my woods, some of them will be able to be seen through, and it's just going to add that dimension in the area of my woods. So I throw in these trees, and it also helps me to look at these when I'm laying in and I'm tapping my brush, and I'm just coming in with just black here, and I'm tapping in for some of these leaves that are in the distance, these shadowed leaves, and having those trees kind of help me picture, where they would be on a tree so that they look more realistic. So then I'm going to mix up some yellow and some green, and now I'm throwing in leaves that are going to be more catching that light and in the foreground that you might see. And then I let this set because this is not anywhere close to what it'll be in the end, but I want this layer to dry. Otherwise, if I keep splotching these on, I'm going to make a muddied mess. So that gave my rocks time to dry, and now I can come through and start creating this waterfall, defining these rocks and cascading it down and imagining where that water is going to hit, where it will flow to next, and how that falls to the next layer. And I tried various brushes just because I was experimenting. And I tried my fan brush. If you don't that was a rake brush, but then I decided, I didn't like the look I was getting there. So here it is. I went to a fan brush to test that out. And honestly, I ended up liking the fan brush and my small detail brush to really get in some of that falling look of that falling water. And I love this fan brush. This is a very small fan brush, but it's nice and stiff. Yet the bristles feel like it's kind of like a synthetic, almost nylon, not hog hair. Although I do have some hog hair ones. This one is not, but it's very stiff for a like a tack-on type bristled brush. And here I'm still just trying to picture where this water is going to fall, where it will go next. And this is helping define all of these rocks that I've laid in. And that was, again, just by doing those horizontal strokes in multiple tones to make it look like rocks stacked on top of the other. And then I ended up using a very small rake brush, extremely small rake brush. And a rake brush, if you're not familiar, it is a brush that looks like a few bristles here and there are slightly longer than the others. And it keeps them separated so that when you do your strokes, you get multiple lines in one. So again, if you just have a small detail brush, of course, you could just use that. It would just take you a little longer. So just as I go, I just continue to imagine where that water's hitting and when it hits, how it might change direction and how it might cascade down to the next level. Continuing to add height to my painting each time this takes a step down. It kind of pushes back slightly and adds more volume and depth. So here I'm thinking that right there is where we're going to make it come over. Maybe it hits part of that rock, and then that's going to fall to the front and back over the shadow or different areas that I had on that boulder in the front. I really wasn't sure on that boulder, and the end result, I wasn't too thrilled with it. But you just go with what you go with. And there's no mistakes. I mean, I think in the end it worked out okay, but if I chose to create this painting again, I might omit that boulder or do it slightly differently. Now again, here coming through, and as I paint this into the water, I'm going to come back. I got to let these dry because I'm going to add white on top of them. Now this is thinned down and doing the wisped line so that you can see through it. Because it's a waterfall, you might be able to see through that area of the water coming back. And then here I'm going to pull down, use very thinned down, almost like dirty white milky water. And I pull down on the front of my painting just to show reflection of the waterfalls on there. And you'll see me do it again. I think I even flip the painting over as I go to be able to get that. But I just keep letting it dry. Then I can come back and add in some more brighter white at the bottoms where the water hits and makes contact, because it would be splashing and foaming. So I'm going to keep adding layers to build that up. I'm not using my heavy body paints in this, so I'm not using that really thick and opaque titanium white. These are more fluid, what I would consider craft paint. I use these when I teach some little artists for them to get started. And really, I chose these paints today because I want to just show you that you can create beautiful paintings, even with this type of paint, if that's all you have at home. So now I'm coming back through and I'm using a smaller round brush. It's a hog bristle brush, and it's very stiff. And I'm using a small round one because it's helping me get in, because this is a small canvas. This is only 8x6. And it's helping me to get in closer and do smaller detail, yet still get the speckling that I want to create the look of the woods that are going to be around this waterfall. So I'm going to add in some lighter greens. I will come back again with little bits of yellow to add light and highlights. And I'm picturing individual trees, different clumps and clusters of leaves. I just used a palette knife to scrape a little bit to make it look like trunks. And now I'm taking a fine detail brush and just taking some black and adding what would be, branches or trunks peeking through here and there. Just to better defined, you're just speckling that paint on in its shape. So by throwing in these branches, now you're giving it more definition. It actually is looking more like a tree and not just a bunch of little spots dabbed on the painting. So you're seeing those trees really start to take shape here. Now I'm going to come back again, like I said, adding in more white. So it's brighten up where the water is hitting at the base. And I go through and touch each little waterfall as it hits the surface below. Now, knowing some of that little foamy stuff will cascade out and flow down the river, bringing that down, and there you go. I'm bringing some of that white down. Clearly trying to stay out of your view, but not doing a very good job at it. I'm taking a mop brush, and I am just dragging that out so that it looks like reflection in the water. There's my favorite makeup brush to blend that in so it's not too strong. Just subtle reflections because I want this to be nice clear water. Then we sign our painting, and there you have it. That is Waterfall in the Woods. And if you saw that, I signed mine in a water-soluble graphite or charcoal and then come back through because I can put the paint on after the fact, which makes it so much easier when you are signing your paintings. And if you're having trouble learning your signature in paint, which can be quite difficult, that's a great tip. So again, thanks for joining me. I will put links here to other videos that I have. I hope you will join me again soon. If you paint this one, please share it with me on my Facebook page. I would love to see your work. Stay safe, everyone, and as always, happy painting.